Hi everyone. Okay, I know a lot of you probably got a Gemini foil press or a Spellbinders glimmer machine or a Couture Creations Go Press and Foil. So I'm just going to go through and do a couple basic designs for you guys. I am going to demonstrate on the Gemini foil press. This is designed to work with the Gemini Junior. It will work with the regular Gemini, but you must have an adapter plate. Okay, so when you get it out of the box, you're going to have the base plate of the machine, the plug, which I already have plugged in. This is your platform, your heating platform. You want to be careful to always protect the prongs here. This is the most sensitive part of your machine. Okay, it has a kind of a silicone top to it, and then you have this top plate, or I think sometimes they call it the carbon fiber plate, but this is your top plate. As you can see, mine has a couple of cuts in it. That's perfectly fine. You can buy an extra platform and an extra plates online. The other thing you might want to have, if you don't have in front of you, is a magnetic shim, which comes with your regular Gemini. If it didn't come with your plates, I use the one that came with my regular Gemini Junior, sorry. And you may want a metal shim, which I've covered mine in washi tape, also part of the Gemini Junior cutting plates, okay? Just so you know, because in the book, it doesn't tell you that, and you think it's supposed to be in your box, and it doesn't come in the box. You also get some starter hot foil stamps, which look like metal dies, but what they're designed to do is stamp. You get a silicone cooling mat, and then you also get these little hot gloves that are designed to protect your fingers as you're touching the plate. Okay, and you get these little magnetic tweezers. All right, so if this is your first time using it, I do recommend going back and checking my foiling playlist. I do have huge playlists on the Gemini foil press. I've had mine from the beginning since last November, so I've had it over a year, and I think I'm pretty good with it. I still do a lot of experimenting with it because there are different foiling companies out there, different kinds of papers, different kinds of dyes, hot foil dyes, and things like that. So you always want to test it out. So when you get the machine, you want to plug it in. You're going to take your plate and press it in. And then on the side, you're like, hey, it's not turning on, right? Okay. On the side, you must turn this power button on first. So once you turn that on, you'll hear it beep. The power should come on. So now it's red. It's telling me it's warming up. You have low, medium, and high settings. This is your minute timer, your second timer, and then start for your timer, and then reset. So for today, I am going to be using different foils. I always recommend the Gemini foils because they are the best. They work at a lower heat. They transfer smooth and clean. I will say their foils are the best. But you can find Spellbinders Glimmer Foil out on the store. You can find Go Press and Foils out in the store. And today, I am going to be trying out these Go Press and Foils because I need to make some New Year's cards. So I'm going to send these out to people. Maybe I forgot to send a Christmas card too, but still want to let them know I'm thinking of them. Maybe I need to send out a couple thank you notes for some gifts that me and the kids got. Things like that, you know, just well wishes for the new year. So when you get the foil, almost all of these foil companies come in a roll. If you don't like the rolls, We Are Memory Keepers sells the foil quill foil, and it comes in sheets. You can get it in rolls or sheets. So if you like sheets better, you can get it that way. All right, so I just cut the little plastic tape off of there. So there's going to be a piece there with tape, but it's going to be hard to see. And then what you want to do is you generally want to cut this to the size of your project or your die, because a lot of times there's overfoiling, and overfoiling is when the foil ends up going over top of your product or your project, sorry. So I'm just going to cut this to the size of this border die. Now these dies that I'm using today, almost all of them are Crafter's Companions hot foil dies. They're called hot foil stamping dies. Because this foil is Go Press and Foil, generally I know that this foil works at a higher heat. So I am going to go to medium. and we're going to wait for this light to turn green, okay? It will only turn green while this platform is plugged in, and this is going to warm up. For paper today, I've already pre-cut a whole bunch of this black glossy cardstock. This is from the Paper Cut, and I just think it's going to look cool to have these black backgrounds with this on there. So most of these are cut down to 5 by 3 3/4. I do have some spare pieces in here. I want to try to just kind of at this point test out my heat settings and timer settings with this foil. So I'm going to try to stay in frame while I'm doing this. Now, the only time I will go out of frame is I do have my Gemini Junior off to the side. I'm not going to bring that into frame. Basically, all I do is I take this whole platform off and I very carefully feed this into my Gemini Junior. It fits perfectly for the Gemini Junior. Now, what a lot of people have done is taped this plate, this top plate to here, because you want to make sure this doesn't jump over. It will crack. So you want to be very careful in loading this in and out of your machine, and this end always goes in first. Never load it handle first, okay? Now, caution, this plate does get very hot. It's a heated surface, and you should use these little thumb holders that came with it. I am used to touching it, and so I know where to touch it, so you won't see me use it, but you definitely should. If there are small children or pets around, I would shoo them away. This is not for children to be touching. You won't see my kids ever using it or touching it unless they're very skilled and supervised. So whenever I'm doing this, my kids know, okay, kind of back away, because this does get pretty warm, and you don't, the higher you set the temperature, the hotter it's going to get. You don't want them around. Now, I do prefer this machine over the Go Press and Foil and the Spellbinders for that reason, because you can set your temperature and you can set your timer, and on those other machines, you really can't do that unless you kind of manually time it. I did have the Go Press and Foil. To me, I felt like I had better control with this. However, again, this machine is only to be recommended to be used with the Gemini Junior or the full-size Gemini with an adapter plate. Now, there are ways around it. I can't talk about it on this video, but if you have any questions about it, you can certainly email me. I will tell you, if you use any other manufacturer's dies, the Toto die is definitely Toto die, and it is called Toto. It's a European company. They're not recommended for this machine because they are absolutely too thick, and any other kind of die cutting machines are forbidden. You will void your warranty if you use any of those that could void the warranty. Okay, so now this is kind of warm. It's telling me this is now green. It went from red to green. It beeped. So I'm going to take a little piece of this cardstock, and I'm going to put my cardstock up. Sorry, I'm doing it backwards already. Excuse me, it's been a few weeks. You're going to put your plate down first, your die, your Stampin' Die first, okay? Now, here's where a lot of people mess up. They put their foil down on the die. You always want to do ugly side up. Think of reverse die cutting, okay? So if we're pressing this design into this foil onto my paper, I need the ugly side of the foil up. I don't want to see the pretty shiny part of the foil. I want to see the ugly part of the foil. We're going to put that face up. And then we're going to put our paper face down, okay? Now, again, because this is a different company, I know it normally takes a higher heat and longer timing. I'm going to set this for 30 seconds. Normally with the Spellbinders, the Gemini foil, and I'm going to hit start. The Gemini foil, you need it on low heat, and it's generally about 15 seconds, and it perfectly foils. So again, I want to test this out, and then what I normally do is I do write on here medium 30 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever timing works for me, so that the next time I use this foil, I know what's best. This is called Iridescent Diamond Finish, and this is from Go Press and Foil. So it's going to beep. We know it's done. We're going to take this whole plate. I'm not going to put any shims or anything on it. And I'm going to run this through my Gemini Junior. Okay, now you don't want to plug this right back in until you're ready to do your next foiling. A lot of people have issues with their plate overheating and warping, and I think that's part of it. So, and if your plate does warp, it's not going to affect your foiling. You just want to let it cool down. So we'll see if medium 30 seconds worked. It might have been too much heat. We'll find out here in a second. It was definitely good pressure because I can see the indentation there from the die. And that was pretty much perfect. It's a little underfoiled here, but that's because that's where the Scotch tape was. So I know that for this particular foil, and again, I'm just going to write it on my box here, medium 30 seconds. Because believe me, I do a lot with this machine, but you know, you put it away after a couple weeks and you're like, what was I doing again? And I've shown videos where you want to keep your scraps. You can use them later on with foiling the excess. Okay, so I think that's really pretty. That was just my sample. The other thing you can do is you can keep your samples. You can, you know, I know this is glossy black, and same thing, I can put Go Press and Foil on here. And kind of make yourself like a little flip book. You can punch a hole in here and put a ring, you know, binder on there. And save your little experiments so that you know what underfoiling is, what overfoiling is, what dies work best, what dies don't work. In fact, I am going to show that right now. And then the way you lift these dies up is there's a little magnet in there. You're going to close your tweezers, grab the magnet, and then take it over to your cooling plate, your little silicone cooling plate, and then release the tweezers and it'll fall off and cool down. Okay, so I do that off to the side. I'm going to plug this back in. One of the dies I have a problem with is this Go Press and Foil dies. These are very pretty, elegant dies. They were advertised with the Anna Griffin set when she was affiliated with the Go Press and Foil. So I did find mine on HSN. You can find them online. I'll link them down below for you guys. But this simply says Happy New Year, right? So very, very pretty die. I have the machine on. It's on green. It's ready to go. I'm going to cut some of this pretty foil. And again, we kind of want to cut it to size because we don't want to overfoil. And overfoiling is when you get extra foiling where you don't want it. Now this also has a piece of that tape in there, so that might affect how this foils. I'm going to try to keep it so that tape, and that's why when I open a new roll, I kind of use that as that first piece as my practice piece. Hopefully that tape doesn't mess anything up. Again, we want to put the ugly side up. And I'm going to put a piece of cardstock on here. Now there is a little grid on here, and I just eyeball it. If it's a little crooked, then oh well. Now I'm going to hit start because we're just going to do 30 seconds again. And we'll see if this die works. And the problem I have with this die is it's a little thicker die. It's not as thin as, this is a Crafter's Companion die, and this is just a thinner die. And because it's a thicker die, what usually happens is it will kind of tear through my paper. And I get a lot of overfoiling with it. So we'll see how it works out here on this paper. This is a little bit thicker cardstock, and it is a coated cardstock. And I don't recommend doing any shims or anything until you do these practice rounds and get to learn your machine. It's like anything else we do in crafting. You know, none of us were great at stamping. None of us were great at coloring. None of us were great at, you know, doing any of these things. It takes practice. But believe me, once you do it a few times, you get the hang of it. It becomes second nature, just like heat embossing, right? So don't give up. Keep trying it. You'll notice I put my platform back in here, but I didn't push it in. It didn't beep. So it's sitting here, but it's not heated. It's not activated right here. Okay. So we'll see how this worked out. And you want to give it a second to cool because you want that foil to transfer. The biggest difference between heat activated foil and regular foiling, like the Mink machine, I have a ton of videos on that as well, is that this foil has a activator in it. It already has an adhesive in it. And what happens is once the heat hits the foil, that adhesive gets activated and it sticks. Toner foil, like your mink foil, does not have that. So it will not work with these hot foil dies. So it is two different stamping systems. On my Facebook page, I do have in the notes section the difference between the two foiling companies and the foiling systems. And this just foiled fabulously. I'm in love. All right, so now I'm going to make a whole bunch of these, and these will be my card fronts. And you know what? I'm kind of okay that it's a little crooked too. I mean, I guess I could straighten it out. What do I need to do there? The year needs to come down a little bit. Like that. Fabulous. Let's do a couple more like that. I'm just like, because I was having a problem with these dies for a little bit there. And I think it was because maybe the paper that I was using, I don't know. Oops. Ugly side up, see? Now, let's say you accidentally do that. Let's say you accidentally foil on your die. It happens to all of us. Do not panic. Don't freak out. I'm going to press that back in. 30 seconds comes up. Press start. All you're going to do if you ever get foil on any of your dies, because it happens to us, is you're just going to take some fingernail polish remover, some acetone, a little Q-tip or cotton ball, and rub this off. The foil will come right off of it. So my idea was I wanted to foil a whole bunch of these panels. This is really cool. See that shimmer? Come on, focus. There we go. And then I was just going to simply put them on some card fronts with maybe some sequins and send them out. Okay, just in case we wanted to see if that was a fluke. I did it again here. Oh, and I think my Happy New Year is straight now. We're going to again give that a second to cool off. Notice my plate is not plugged back in. We're going to remove this. Perfect foiling. Now, there is a tiny little bit of overfoiling right here in the H. I'm not going to mess with it. You could take a little eraser or scraper tool to get to it, but because this is a coated card, if you erase that, it's going to make a smudge mark and people are going to notice that more. So in this case, I'm going to leave it alone. Look how perfect that is. Oh, I'm so giddy right now, you guys. Okay. All right. So let's say I want to add a little pizzazz to this, a little design. These are two different die companies, so I would not put these together. So what you can do is you can go back in and foil this later on. I don't want to take that off of there because it's like perfect placement. However, all right, we'll do one more. And then, you know what we'll do? We'll switch up the foil because I don't want you guys to get bored watching me. Okay, this one is called Iridescent Pillars Finish. This is also Go Press and Foil, heat activated. Gold foil. This one's really pretty. I'm going to find that little piece of tape. Not only is it hard to find the piece of tape, it's hard to find the end of the foil. I can feel it, but I can't see it. It's an optical illusion. Oh, there we go. Always cut away from you. There we go. Let's see how this comes out. And I save all my little scraps. You guys have seen, and if you haven't seen, I have videos on what to do. Now I know this has a little piece of tape, so I'm trying to align this foil so that we're kind of avoiding that little piece of tape. That cardstock down. All right, let's see how this gold comes out. always keep your owner's manual. I have a little, this is my little bin of my little hot foil stamps. You can see all my little hot foil stamps in there. I also have inside here my instruction manual, and then I keep little pieces of paper of notes in here, right here, how to foil the waist and things like that. But it tells you here, depending on using Gemini foil, how to do the foiling, what temperature, timing, and all that. Okay, this is the gold foil. We'll see if this works as good as the silver foil. Now, one mistake I made was I assumed that if it was the same foiling company that it would all foil the same way. That is not true. Different foils have different finishes, have different temperatures, different timing. So don't assume because these are the same foiling companies that I'm going to get the same results, because that I found the hard way. So I'm going to give that a second to cool down. This looks like, I can tell, it looks like it came out pretty well. Now my paper was off center and it's a little underfoiled there, but I think that came out pretty cool. All right, so let's move on to something different. Let's do a whole background. So we have these beautiful snowflakes. Actually, I'm going to do this border one. I want to use some more of this gold foil on these stars. This is a Crafter's Companion stamp and die. Hot stamp die. I shouldn't say stamp and die. It is not a die. It will not cut. It will leave an impression, but it will not cut. And I just kind of want to border one of my sheets with this one. So we have the hot foil stamp in there. Actually, yeah. Okay. Ugly side up. Put my cardstock in there. Okay, it's green, which means it's ready to be timed. We have it on 30 seconds. Start. And then sometimes these dies you have to heat up longer because they're so big. So we'll see how this large one does in a minute. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. You can press the subscribe button that's going to come up at the end down in that corner, and then click the bell, and every time I post a video, you will get notifications. Also, check out the playlists. There's a lot on foiling and all the other companies I work with. And of course, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Now, if you find you are getting what I like to call a dead spot or soft spot in your die, that sometimes happens. It depends on the die. It depends on your plate. What you may want to do at that point is shim it. And that just means put a piece of paper over it before you run it through the machine. So this one, again, seems to have come out okay. I just want to give it a little second to cool down. And all that does is it locks in the adhesion of the foil to your cardstock. Look at that. How gorgeous is that? And then we can do that Happy New Year over top. We can do Happy Birthday. You can make a cute little set of note cards with this. I probably should have come over a little more, but it's straight, and to me, well, it looks pretty good. I'm going to do one more of those because I have an extra piece of the cardstock all ready to go here. And we'll try to line it up better. Maybe I just cut it too short. Yeah, I did. I cut it too short. That's okay. Try to line that up as best as I can. We'll do another one of those, and then we'll switch over to the large die. So what kind of problems can happen? And I have a video that says common mistakes in foiling. Number one is, again, you don't know the pressure or the sensitivity of timing of heat on your machine. That I can't teach you. You just have to kind of practice with everything. Number two is overfoiling. Overfoiling is when you just get foiling all over everything. That means you have too much heat or too much pressure. That means you need to cut your foil down, have it match the die, turn your heat level down, always start with low. Turn your timer down, okay? And then the third thing is underfoiling. And underfoiling is when you get, like I said, those dead spots where it just doesn't foil. So it either is a problem with the die or problem with your platform. And you just need to shim it. And to shim it, you can just use regular cardstock. You just fold it in half, and I have extra pieces here. So you just have regular cardstock you put in there before you run it through your die cutting machine, and then that will help give you pressure, which will help prevent some of that underfoiling. But again, I do encourage you to take your time, practice with it, and check out my other videos in the playlist, and then you can see what some of those mistakes are and how I correct them. This was that other piece of foil with the plastic tape right there. I can see the tape right there. So that may have not foiled properly. Yeah, it's okay. It's not too bad. Those are pretty cool. I mean, so now I'm making a whole bunch of these note cards that are going to come out pretty cool looking. Let's do a full-size die. Okay, so this is a full-size hot stamp. I'm going to put that in there. I like to put the lid on and let it cook a little bit while it warms up. Personal preference. I'm going to go back to that super sparkly silver foil. I will link, there's a couple different websites that I get my hot foils from. If you have a Hobby Lobby near you, you can get quite a few of the Spellbinders foils from them. A lot of times you can order them online, so I'll link a couple different sites for you guys. You want to keep your foils in the boxes. You want to store them so they are free of debris, dust. Keep them away from moisture. Keep them away from sunlight. If you have pets and things like that, if you see my storage of my foils, everything goes back in the boxes. Everything goes into a case. Everything gets put where it can't get affected, because the foils do scratch easily and they mar, and that's going to affect how they perform. And if you want good foiling, you have to take care of your foiling products. All right, so we have the plate down there. It's a little warm. We're going to put the foil down, ugly side up, pretty side down. If you're not sure, the shiny side always goes down. I'm going to put my cardstock on there, and I am going for a full background here. So I'm kind of just putting that in the middle. I'm actually going to move this whole thing up a little, my plate. There we go. Okay, and let's see how this takes. 30 seconds on medium heat. Like I said, we might need to put extra pressure or timing on this because it's a larger die. Stamp, hot stamp. I keep saying die. I'm not talking about dies. I'm sorry. Hot stamp. Hot foil stamp. Okay. And when I grab mine, I grab in this corner, in this bottom corner. I don't use those hot tongs. Again, it's very warm, so I just grab the tippy corners here. And I guide it through my Gemini Junior. I don't put any extra shims or anything on it. Okay, so you can see here I got some foiling on my plate. That's fine. I would just take some acetone and wipe that down, and it'll come right off. Should we reveal? That's as perfect as it's going to get. Look at that.